Welcome to LTV's Food Talk, where we talk about food, fishing, farming, and all things East End. Today, my esteemed guests, Jason Weiner, the chef, co-owner of Almond in Bridgehampton, as well as Almond on 22nd Street, Almond in Tribeca, L&W Oyster, and probably two other operations we don't even know about.
I don't know what you've heard, but it's but maybe yes, sure. Let's
right?
say yes.
And Brian Halweil, who is the editor, founder of Edible East End, also operates Edible Brooklyn, Edible Manhattan, and there may be another Edible because we've talked about that. I'm so excited to have you guys here. Thank you for coming. Tell us about you brought a little something for us, and it looks like a great product.
Well, I thought we were supposed to. I thought this was like show and tell, that we were all supposed to bring something. Like Jason's bringing his thing, and you're going to serve us coffee. So I brought Vervino because I had it lying around. This is like one of our house drinks. This is the new vermouth. I don't know which batch that is, but for the last 2 years or 3 years, Christopher and Channing Daughters have been making vermouth, a whole range of them. Jason, jump in whenever you want.
Well, Chris Tracy, the guy's a maestro. He is, a true artisan, and he has access to a bunch of different products, local products that you wouldn't necessarily often find in wine, such as chamomile and beach plums and all kinds of stuff.
He's done this before.
And he's infused them into this amazing. He calls it a Vervino. It's a vermouth of sorts. It's not a classic vermouth, but it makes a great martini.
No, I like it better than classic vermouth. It's just ultra dry and pretty floral, and all the ingredients literally are within a few hundred miles
and they're all
of the
pictured,
winery.
And they're all pictured here.
He takes a picture himself of when it's in the batch, so you see it. But I think it's a nice metaphor for, that you can always do something new in life. I mean, here he's been making great wine, and like, oh, what else can I do? So he says, I'm going to make some vermouth.
19.7% alcohol by volume. That's more than like a Chardonnay or
Twice,
a Cab.
yeah.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Okay.
It's a fortified.
Beautiful label. It goes very well next to this painting.
It's almost it's almost a camouflage situation.
But I think it's also
right
just like such a good example of what our area can produce.
Right.
It's not just potatoes and cauliflower. We know that anymore, but we can do virtually anything we want within our climate. Whatever people want to eat and grow and feed to each other.
And I think that goes to the relationship that I've known Brian for a long time, but we're kind of both in the same business in a way. I mean, we're both sort of telling stories about great products. I'm a chef, but really what I do is just get amazing products that are locally grown, have a story behind them, and sort of put them on a plate and sort of go from there.
Because you use local products as much, if not more, than any chef on the East End. And I guess my question is, what do you do in the winter? How do you manage
Well,
that?
it's a good question. We do a lot of pickling and a lot of canning. There's
And spooning and snuggling in the winter, that happens too.
Well, let's me and you. There's all those things. We do all those things to keep things kind of fresh and exciting. There's some role playing sometimes with me and you. You see, what you don't know about me and Brian is that we kind of, and he's stolen this line from me in the past, but he's kind of my Kissinger to my Nixon. So, we kind of,
The other way around.
Who's Kissinger? Well, that's the other thing. Again, there is role playing.
Role playing.
Like any relationship, you have to keep things interesting and fun and different.
But what you do in the winter is a good question. It's become easier to answer that question. Like, think of Goodwater Farms. There's year-round agriculture out here like there hasn't been indoor. A lot more pickling, a lot more storage, people expanding it to things that you can grow into the winter, even outdoors.
For sure.
People weren't doing that 15 years ago.
Merrily Foster has a hoop house. Quail Hill Farm have hoop houses.
Some very big ones on the North Fork.
For sure, yeah. So, honestly, this time of the year and going into the summer, I get about 90-some-odd% of my produce locally. In the winter, it's not quite that percentage, but still, again, there's a lot of brining, curing, smoking, hanging, all these ancient techniques, that were born of lack of refrigeration and needing to preserve the harvest. by happy accident, they actually make things taste amazing. So it's sort of
And because you want more stuff. I mean, why drink just wine when you can also have vermouth, right? And mix it with some, you know.
Well said. So now, Brian, you were a former senior fellow at World Watch, and you've written a book. Tell us about the book so that people understand, you know, the guts behind Edible East End.
Well, that was my former life at World Watch when I lived in Washington, D.C. That was my first job out of college, and I worked for a think tank, an environmental think tank in D.C., the World Watch Institute, and that was very fun. It was a steep learning curve, just crunching numbers, cranking out reports on climate change and population growth and big global trends and testifying on the Hill. I actually testified, I don't think I've ever told you this story. It was one of the early GMO laws that was being bounced around, and Monsanto and other producers of biotech crops, you know, were sort of bringing their lobbyists to force to D.C. And I had just written a big article for World Watch on, you know, do we need biotech crops? And so, of course, the opposition got hold of me and said, hey, will you come testify? And I said, well, this is great. This is like part of my job. I'm going to go testify at a Senate hearing. And it was the worst. I walked into the worst situation in the history of Senate hearings.
What do you mean?
John Ashcroft was the head of that committee.
Oh, wow.
What
was the committee?
It was the Foreign Relations Committee. They were approving some government funding for a law, biotech promotion law, that Monsanto was behind. It was very murky, 1998, early days of biotech. Yeah. And there were a bunch of old Republican senators who've now passed away, but they were all on that committee. You name them.
Wow.
You know?
Great.
And so, you know, they had their people, they'd trotted in, they gave their presentations, oh, we need this stuff to feed the world, and oh, yeah, this is going to be great for Africa. They had a guy who had formerly worked with Jesse Jackson, and then I get up there to give my presentation, which is the complete opposite, and all these guys start turning red. My wife is in the audience. I can feel her thinking, someone's going to, you know,
Off you.
Yeah, take this guy. But it was a learning experience. It was a learning experience. But that was a little bit like World Watch, my days at World Watch. That was that sort of thing, you know, big picture thinking, white papers, lobbyists. But while I was there,
Did you have a moment that all were, you can't handle the truth? Did you do any standing up, cinematic, whole, Mr. Smith goes to Washington?
You know, yes, there was a lot of that.
Okay.
I don't know if it's on tape. There was a lot of that. Yeah, I held my own. I got a little dry-mouthed, and I turned red when they turned red, but I went through my whole speech. Then they basically avoided me the whole rest of the hearing. And at the end, who was it? It was a senator from Iowa, really nice old farm guy. He said, Mr. Halweil, we haven't really given you a chance to say anything else.
Harkin,
Would you like
Harkin,
to?
Tom
Harkin.
Harkin, that's what I was going to say.
It was him, exactly, nice guy. He said, would you like to make some closing remarks? So I just took that as a, you know, as carte blanche. I could say whatever I wanted at that point. I started talking about funding for women's health around the world and all the things that this committee had standed in front of. And at that point, senators actually got up and started leaving. So it was a dramatic moment. I said what I needed to.
Good for you.
You know, that whole debate about biotech has hardly changed in the last 20 years, which is a fascinating topic. But long story short, I don't usually use that expression, but I'm feeling long-winded this morning. At World Watch, I really got into, I saw that the most positive thing happening was the local food movement at the time. This was like, you know, pre-omnivore's dilemma and early thinking, because how else were we going to get a handle on climate change and food being shipped all over the world? And mad cow disease had just happened. That was all that same year. So people started really thinking. Food Inc. was about to come out, Super Size Me, Eric Schlosser's great book, Fast Food Nation. That was all happening. I wrote a book called Eat Here, which was like a manifesto on why we should all be eating local. It got a lot of pickup. And from there, you know, we launched the Edible magazines, and it's been a nice run, even though it was not a great time to get into the publishing business.
Right. But it's a wonderful magazine with just a beautiful layout and the feel of the
nice.
paper. I
Yeah,
love
it
the
feels nice.
feel
Yeah,
of
yeah,
the
me too.
publication. But you have great writers that get in depth into their subject matter, and it's, you know, if you're a foodie or just even a casual observer of the East End food scene, you got to pick it up, let alone now you've got Edible Long Island.
For Nassau County, it's true. That one's been very fun, I have to say. We have a little bit more, as you know, because I know you explore Western Suffolk, Nassau, and Queens. I know you love hanging in Queens. There's a lot that they have there. Like, you can get good cake donuts, seasonal cake donuts on Long Island. I'm not sure I found that on the East End. I'm not sure I found it on the North or the South Fork. I love Breadzilla's donuts around the corner.
Right.
Dreesen's, I know, but not
I gotta
cake
make a stop.
donuts.
I gotta.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I really just keep driving. I'm in Queens. I gotta I gotta go to Flushing, whatever, and then I keep going. I gotta check it out.
Right.
Yeah.
So I live in Sunnyside when I'm not here, and there's a Lebanese to-go place. This is from the old country. They make spinach pies with real spinach.
Right.
I couldn't be happier. And his hummus is like made by the hand of God. I mean, the flavors are incredible. So I'm lucky to be in an actual neighborhood where there's also a Turkish component there. So there's a Turkish restaurant, a little Turkish package store. So I'm in good shape there. If you need any spanakopita or
I love
Can I
spinach
give you an
pie.
order?
yeah,
later?
olives,
Okay.
they
What's
got
your-
everything.
What is the dish that you love to make from your heritage? Because you have a very interesting food history in your family.
Well,
The
thank you.
one dish.
Oh, one dish from my family. Well, actually, it would be something I wanted to talk about, which my dad used to make this sandwich called the hard bread sandwich. He made it every Saturday morning for me for 10, 12, 15 years when I come home from college. He goes, hey, you want a hard bread sandwich? Well, it turns out that it's a muffaletta. Do you guys know what a muffaletta is?
No, go ahead.
Okay, so according to the Food Lover's Companion, a muffaletta is a hero-style sandwich originated in 1906, which has crusty Italian bread, provolone salami, then they add ham olive salad, which was my dad's. My dad would make it with
tapenade.
salami. He would make a salami, sliced tomato, sliced provolone, sliced red onion, and an olive salad.
When you say olive salad, are you talking about a tapenade, or you're talking about?
It's not a tapenade. It's
rough
actually
chopped?
you would get Progresso olives or some brand of chopped olives,
Sure.
and then he would chop it more and just ladle the olives on it. So it turns out I've been eating a muffaletta. But one of the things we like to do in this show is just sort of demystify food terms.
Sure.
I don't know how you come up with a muffaletta from basically an Italian sandwich, but anyway, apparently I've been eating them all my life, and I got my son turned on to them. So that's probably my favorite dish. However, my dad made a mean tabbouleh, also something called salata.
What are you? You're Greek?
I'm Lebanese and Irish.
Gotcha, okay.
Very, very, very difficult to be Lebanese and Irish. It's not good.
Now, what generation are you?
I guess I'd be third because
Right.
both my parents were
They met
born
here.
in the States.
And met here.
They're both from Berlin, New Hampshire.
Got it.
And my uncle used to say that's God's country because nobody else wants it. It's like 35 miles from Canada. It's on the other side of the presidential range.
I got you.
It's unfortunately it's a dying town. They like bring the prisons here. We'll take the prisons, you know. But that's where they're from, and I never lived there, but I visit there as often as I can. I've got fond memories.
Sure.
They make a muffaletta, and they sell it in like all pre-made.
Calling it a muffaletta? They call it a...
No, they call it a hero.
You know, Cavagnola's in Sag Harbor sells a muffaletta. They call it the papadou. They have another name for it, but you get that in New Orleans. I was in New Orleans recently, and I had a muffaletta.
And
Called a muffaletta?
They call it that.
right,
Yeah.
right.
They call it muffaletta, I think.
Muffaletta.
And
So-
what do you... I don't. I call it muffaletta.
I'm not a huge... I mean, I actually like it. I like it.
And you call it...
Muffaletta.
I call it a muffaletta. That's what I call it.
Is there like a hesitation?
There's a pause. Yeah, it's a pause.
It's like an accent.
You wait. It's like a pregnant, like it's weird now. Muff. You wait for people to look around. Then you...
Muffaletta.
That was easy.
So,
Oh, Jesus.
I know, right?
Um,
Jason's gonna peg me. Jason's gonna try to make this like this is my legacy.
this is
'cause I
your
brought
thing.
this
It's
little
kind of
button
like
here. This is
the
from
Gary.
Staples.
A little bit.
It's like the Gary Shandling show with what's his name, Jeffrey Tambor. Hey now, right? This will be your shtick.
5 people in the whole world, history of the world, that you would like to have to dinner.
Oh, wow. Jeez. I wouldn't mind, I mean, of course, Neville Chamberlain and Adolf Hitler. That's the low-hanging fruit, right? And then you'd have
They're
to...
probably already taken.
And now I'd be quivering in the corner, so I need someone just to kind of get the conversation rolling, so Terry Gross. So that's then I could just really, I don't know, I could just really zone out.
Well, you
and
need
just
some
do-
music. How about someone who can sing?
Right, Lenny Kravitz, of course.
Or, right?
Or
Not my choice.
All right,
How
so
about
yeah,
Questlove?
no.
These
must
must
be
be
yours
too.
then.
He's more into food.
Questlove.
Wait, who
I
do
don't
you have?
think-
And Jimmy
I'm
Fallon,
not
'cause
sure.
that would be fun.
I don't think Adolf Hitler would really see. Lenny Kravitz is half Jew, half black. That would really
So you
really
have,
stick
you have,
in
you
Adolf.
have, you have Chamberlain. I got to write these down.
Right, Chamberlain.
Hitler,
Terry Gross.
Terry Gross.
Lenny Kravitz, just because he's kind of like sexy and maybe can maybe kind of can bridge the divide. Right?
And are you looking for more half Jewish people like that Adam Sandler
And then
song?
you have the
Goldie Hawn.
Okay, well, I already. This
We
is my
need
five,
one more.
Right? This is my five, all right? Who do I have so far?
Paul Newman.
You've got Chamberlain, Hitler,
full
Terry
Jew.
Gross,
I hate when people say Paul Newman's half Jew. He's full Jew.
Lenny Kravitz. We need one more. 5, 4.
Someone
My
from your family.
daughter in about 30 years. I'd like to see what that is.
That's good.
Seriously, I'd
Oh,
like
yeah.
to see what the heck's
Reeve,
going on there.
Reeve in 30.
I've eaten with Reeve. She's a good eater. She enjoys a meal.
Yeah.
Not all kids understand that, I have to say. I mean, I have 2 little kids, 6 and 8. They are good eaters for what it is. My daughter enjoys a meal. She gets the conviviality and and she'll try new foods. She's
She's great with that.
oysters
Yeah,
at,
oysters, all
I think just after she learned how to walk and then she started eating oysters. We were at a party, she probably had a dozen raw oysters at a big oyster party, and a few people that night got sick. They ate so many oysters, she didn't get sick.
Oh, wow.
My
Gut
5.
bacteria? Is that you think that's the presence of gut bacteria? I mean, you could eat a lot of fermented. The other day
That's a great point.
we had Steve
From
we had-
her mom, maybe.
Right. We had Brian. We had the whole Haweil connection come over to the house for dinner, and Almond, and we're cooking, and I was like, "You don't have anything fermented? They're coming over. You better get something fermented." I ran back to the restaurant, got some kimchi, and brought it over because I didn't want you walking out on me.
And to bring up Michael Pollan again, because the guy has brought a lot of wisdom to the food discussion. You know, his famous 3 rules that he came up with in defense of food.
I know the.
Eat food.
Eat food.
Not too much, mostly plants. He has said if he added a 4th one today, if he was doing that today, he would say, and a little bit of fermented.
Right.
Oh, that's
Because
brilliant.
he's gotten really into that too, and now there's all this thinking on the sort of the microbiome, which I've been told we're really just at the beginning of understanding. That's going to be wild, how it affects mental health and growth, and I could get a transplant from Jason. I could get some of his microbiome. I can give him.
we can finally do
if he's
that?
having a health problem,
We can finally do that.
yeah.
Me and you?
If you want to get like lustrous, greasy hair like mine, we can do that.
Let's not talk about hair. Okay. Your 5 people. Any people in the whole history of the world, who would you invite to dinner?
I would have to have my grandpa Pete was at the top of the list, and probably my grandpa Herb. My grandpa Pete was my last grandpa, and I knew him for a while. He loved a good meal. I mean, he would just, red and white table Italian. We'd go out, and he would just veal Milanese, tricolore salad. It was just like standard stuff. So he was good, and my grandpa Herb apparently was really into food, but I didn't know him because he died pretty early. Maybe I would just have my grandparents. My grandparents at this point. I haven't really, to see what their food habits were like. Because when I hear my grandpa Herb was really into food, it starts to explain stuff. I was at a funeral recently, and my cousin Pam in the Bronx, who's a sex expert, she's a sexologist, high up in the sex therapy community.
It's too easy.
She said, you did not know your grandpa Herb. He was so into throwing a party. And he would show up at a house with a bunch of bagels and lox and that sort of thing. And he just loved doing it. He didn't have a lot of dough, but he'd spend it on entertaining other people. And yeah, I guess I maybe got a little bit of stuff from him.
I have memories of going to Sammy's Romanian with my grandpa and him just doing damage. Veal cutlets. I mean, the whole thing. He was just he was a big guy, big personality. And he was another, he was the kind of guy who, old school, eating fish eyeballs and cheeks and just give me the whole fish and eating the whole, you down to it's kind of like a cartoon, down to the little bone when he's done, that type of thing.
Well, speaking of food, you brought something to prepare for us.
I did. Yeah. Should we? Do you
It's
want
in the Heineken fridge. Shall we?
Okay.
Let's do it.
Yeah. Well, what I did was, ramps are around right now. They're not totally local. These are coming from upstate. but still local enough.
That's our
And
closest ramps. Everyone says, can we get ramps around here? We can't get ramps around
For
here.
some reason, we can't.
Yeah.
They're
We got to
ramps
work on that. We got to work on that.
Well,
There's no
ramps
reason that
are
we-
ramps are foraged. They're not cultivated. You can't cultivate them for whatever reason. They've tried. So the season is short, and it's one of these things you kind of like this time of the year we're getting 10, 20. I got a guy Max, the ramp guy, who's
love
super
right there.
shady. Yeah, this is ramp pesto, and then I have some pickled ramps here again. So
Oh
these
my God, that
preservation-
looks so good.
Yeah, so anyway, I have this guy Max who texts me every once in a while. Dude, I'm coming down. I'll be there in an hour, like into the city. I'll be there in an hour. I can't stay long. I have the ramps. I don't know exactly what his trip is, but
What else
so
does
this
he
time of
have?
the year,
What else does he have in his bag?
as far as I know, as far as I know, ramps. But so what we're doing here, these are our friend Marilee Foster, a good friend of mine and Brian's. She grows a lot of things, and one of those things she does is potatoes. She's actually from a potato growing family out here. So we've confit these potatoes, and now I'm just kind of gonna just take the chill off them, basically.
Do you confit them in sous vide style, in sous vide?
How
do you confit them?
Often, not specifically with these. We have a 5-gallon bucket of chicken fat in the walk-in, and we literally we cook them. We submerge them in chicken fat and cook them that way.
That's not the one I soak my feet in.
So anyway, so these are. So now I'm going to take some of
Oh, nice.
just a little bit of this ramp pesto, which is basically the ramp tops that are pureed with some of the things that you might often find with pesto, and just go right there. Kind of really.
So you really just took the chill off those potatoes.
really just take the chill off, because the cured salmon is something that's kind of you want to keep it kind of yeah. And then we'll go a little couple of. So it's sort of like a ramps 2 ways with house cured salmon. This is Atlantic salmon. I'm sorry, this is Alaskan salmon that we've. It's kind of like we're smoking it, but we haven't smoked it. We've just cured it and then air dried it, and that's it. It's really kind of all. That's all you need to do. You guys want to get in there?
Is this on the menu at?
It is. It is. It's. I think we call it house cured salmon with 2 kinds of ramp love, because that's kind of what it is.
Ramp.
It's kind of lovely. Get in there. Don't make me eat by myself, guys. Come on.
You said that Jason is among the chefs who, buys local out here. I mean, I think that a lot of chefs have gotten on that bandwagon because it's just so smart and wise now. But Jason, I would say, and I know I have a conflict of interest because I'm a friend, but his menu is so ever-changing because he's so open to new things, and that's not so easy for a business or a chef, I have to say.
Thanks for the kind words, but the truth is, it's actually so much easier to do it when you get a list of people, and people are texting you in the morning. This is what I have. This is what I have. This is what I can. This is what, and that's what I have in front of me. I'm not dealing with an infinite list of items from all over the world. I'm only getting the things that I can get, and then I just put them together and put them on a plate. So it's actually, in a lot of ways, it makes life easier when you have. You know what you're getting. You know where you're getting it from. You can believe in it. You know the people that are selling it to you. They have their own story. You know what that story is. So it's actually.
But there's a willingness too, because not everyone would do it. There's a willingness, and you have good connections.
Yeah,
that helps.
that's my thing. I mean, I'm not like I'm not a super creative chef. I just kind of, I surround myself with people who know how to cook, and I surround myself with some people who have good food to sell me.
So I just got a basic question that perhaps some of our viewers might want to know. How do you handle running 4 kitchens?
Yeah, well, that cloning technology is a little bit further ahead than you thought. So I'm actually not. I'm not me right now.
I mean, do you?
I'm not even here.
Do you get to every restaurant?
No, we have a pretty good crew. Yeah, so I try to. I mean, during the summer, I'm here more than I usually would be. But yeah, I try to just hit every place. And the place out here in Bridgehampton is sort of the baby. We're celebrating our 15th anniversary this year. So honestly, this is kind of where me and Eric are. Most of the time, it's the smallest place. I feel like our presence is felt more here. Our clientele kind of relate the restaurant in Bridgehampton to us more directly. The places in the city, while obviously it's us and we have a connection to them, there are other people there who people expect to see. There are other people in the front of the house, in the back of the house that people kind of know. So that said, I'm in the city.
Well
once a
done.
week here,
Yep, it's not easy. Well done, well done.
It's not an easy thing, but I think in this day and age, I mean, you kind of have to manage things in different places, all over the place. I mean, I think we have similar challenges in our businesses that we, live out here, but manage people elsewhere.
I mean, I will say that there are times, me and Eric, my partner Eric, who obviously both of you know, we have the conversation often, like, I wish at some point one of us had, like, I don't know, gone to business school or something. Because he's a front of the house guy, I'm back of the house guy. So all these other sort of skills that we've had to kind of pick up, we've literally just kind of had to pick them up along the way. It's not like we were ever kind of trained to be, have these other skill sets. We just happen, hopefully have them, but it's, really at the end of the day, we're most comfortable
Cooking,
running
and
restaurants
treating
and making customers happy. That's exactly right.
Well, Eric is the consummate maitre d'.
He's good like that.
I wrestled with inviting him on, but I opted for Mr. Halweil. But we'll get Eric back on because he's a hoot. He's just a great guy and a long-time friend and colleague and client, and you know.
But you guys learned it through the School of Hard Knocks, like I did too. I didn't go to business school. I mean, you're saying what every small business owner in the world has to do is, learn how to run a business and have a business. And I know we were talking before off the air about the biggest mistake you've made, what you've learned from. So many. I mean, it's endless. At this stage in life, I feel like there's so many things I look back on and said, oh, I could have done it differently. But I try not to have regrets. That's not a very productive thing. But as I said, we launched Edible East End in 2005. That was our first magazine. And then we launched Brooklyn. We expanded. And the media business has gone through some serious changes in the last few years. And a couple years ago, I really was overwhelmed by fear that, we were on this wrong path. We weren't keeping up with the digital transition. And then I kind of accepted, okay, but you can fix this mistake. You can think about what's coming down the pike trend-wise. And we shifted our staff. We shifted our workflow. We moved around and, learn from your mistakes. Get on with business. Adjust.
Yeah, you got to be nimble. We're running out of time. We could easily do a double header with you guys. I just want to thank our viewers. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Jason. Remember, cógelo suave, pero cógelo. Take it easy, but take it. Thanks so much, guys.
Thank you.
What a